Still with just 1 hour. I don't know how I can do that.
If you were
I've slammed it out. I took 4 biscuits. 4, not 5.
And I think this is the power of just being united in opposition. Whatever we do and whatever we're saying, whatever party we're in, whether we're green, whether we're men, whether we're women, that we're still here united on a common purpose to protect future generations, to protect our current community, and to make sure that we're stopping fracking here in Lancashire and stopping fracking across the country. And these and we're here for many reasons, but for me personally, I'm here on White Wednesday because I do not tolerate the smears that we're seeing from Quadrilla, and for me specifically the scaremongering that they're creating, attacking many of the women in this group and using personal jibes to try and undermine people who are standing up for their rights. We don't buy their spin and that fracking is safe, because it is clear that fracking hurts everyone. It poisons our local water supplies, it releases obscene amounts of carbon into the air, and even causes mini earthquakes that can damage surrounding buildings. You don't need to be told that. You know it daily. But it feels like what this government is doing is creating sacrifice zones. Like it's okay for this to be happening in Lancashire. In Wales, where I'm from, they're currently dumping nuclear mud from Hinckley into just outside of Cardiff. Yet again, somewhere that feels like it's a sacrifice zones. People who are they're happy to contaminate their water supplies, and people where they're happy to create these toxic ideas. And people who are powerful don't seem to care about this. There are so many people in our communities and around the world who are marginalised, and women specifically are that group. And as in so many cases, fracking is dangerous for women, having links to breast cancer, reproductive harm. And I mean, the Prime Minister calls herself a feminist, yet she never looks at any of her policies through a wave of feminism. Whether that's looking at the NHS, whether that's looking at it through austerity and her economic programme, or even issues like this from fracking, because if she was thinking about women and looking at it through the lens of women, she would not be supporting projects like this, and she would be stopping fracking here in the UK. I think this says a lot about our government, it says a lot about Theresa May, and it says a lot about their ideas and who they actually care about. They talk about jobs and energy, and laughably, they talk about how fracking is good for the environment. But they never talk about how it will affect women, and it feels like there's a strong sense of denial coming from this government. And from all of those different factors that completely ignore such a major part of our population. And everyone knows here that we need to reframe the way that we look at the economy, the way that we look at our environment, and make sure that we are protecting this country, this world, for our children, for this generation, and ensure we're not damaging it beyond repair. because we need to be stop treating many of these issues like they're separate issues, like women in the environment are separate issues, like women in the economy are separate issues, because fundamentally all of these policies are intertwined, and the government needs to acknowledge that and start looking at women and how that affects their policy. I said about women here being in the firing line and experiencing misogynistic abuse on social media, channels hammered with daily abuse, and even coming from, and I think this is one of the things that I struggle with when it happens to me. You talk about misogynism, and I've counted it quite a few times. If I put something out about women's rights, I can guarantee that I'll get an abusive tweet within a minute. And it's just that predictable. And I find it harder when it comes from other women as well, because it really, when we work together, we can achieve so much. And when we actually ensure that we're pushing for rights of everyone and ensuring that there is equality for women as well, then we can achieve so much. And I think that when you look at the fracking, issues around fracking, it was Averil McDonald, who is chair of UK onshore oil and gas, that represents the fracking companies, that said, and I quote, "Women are more likely to protest because they don't understand the technology." So she suggested that we follow our gut instinct rather than the facts. And obviously, just being humble women, we're not able to work out the facts, work out the science, work out the engineering. I mean, it insults the intelligence of so many people here. And I think I've said time and time again, I think one of the things I really like is I think Quadrilla don't realise how intelligent everyone here is, and every time they do something, all the campaigners are going to find 10 extra ways that you can continue campaigning, and that they've never thought of while they patronise and undermine us. And I just, this idea that's almost an 18th century idea that women are simply hysterical and are dictated by their emotions. It's 2018, it needs to end. And I've seen some of the abuse that Tina very specifically has had to go through, and I feel that one of the things that I've really found quite powerful is how the community's come together, said no, has made sure that we do work together as a community when we see that happening, and that we've stood against much of the abuse that we're seeing towards our activists, towards our campaigners, because I feel that far too often when women raise their heads above the parapet, they're told to sit back down. And that every time that we're standing up for our rights, we get patronised. And you know what? How dare they? How dare they continue to patronise us for using our voices and making sure that we make a historic stand against a destructive environmental issue? How dare they try and silence us? And I am proud of every single woman that stands up and continues to say no, and to stand together to make sure that we protect our environment, protect our society, and make sure that we refuse to be insulted and patronised. I think I've been doing some work on misogyny as a hate crime, and this is a grassroots campaign that came from Nottingham, a women's group in Nottinghamshire, and I see it as a really powerful campaign because it is grassroots, much like the fracking site here, when it's about people genuinely caring and genuinely wanting to make a difference and coming up with ideas far more powerful than the government, coming up with issues that mean that we can genuinely change things. And I think when we, as I keep saying, when we work together, we can create fundamental change that means that we can change entire systems, whether that's to stop the abuse of women or stop the abuse of the environment, or acknowledging those intertwined issues where fundamentally the government aren't looking at that in a way that is making sure that women are safer in our communities. And I think that fundamentally it's all of these parts. It's when we speak out and when we organise and when we fight back, we can take real action against all of these issues that permeate in our society, whether that's undermining our campaigns, whether that's undermining women in our community, whether that's undermining the environment. And while we're here today, I think that with everything that's been happening, we know that our work is more critical than ever before. I know that that Quadrilla has been trying to gag these protests, the work of the injunction to try and silence us. They've tried to shut us down, they tried to shut us out, but the women in this movement especially, like women around the country and around the planet, simply will not be quiet. And women around the world are making their voices heard. After all, it's women who are leading the charge against Donald Trump and his cohort that have sprung up around the globe. It is women who are leading the fight to clean up our air, our oceans and our planet. Studies have found that farming practices become more inclusive when women work the land, whether that's animal welfare, organic farming, or more care put into protecting the land. I feel like there should be a good position I could hold the mic with, but it's not working. Climate change is a man-made problem, and I hope that the solution will be woman-made. And as always, I'd like to thank you for inviting me here. As you know, and without a shadow of a doubt, across the whole country you've got Green Party support for all of the work and all the campaigning you're doing, all of the lock-ons of all of yourself, of putting yourselves genuinely on the front line of this issue, at the front line of this campaign, putting your bodies where your beliefs are, and making sure that for years this site hasn't opened up, and you've been successful. I know it's been tough, I know it's been hard, but this has been success. It's had its own successes, and if they think that they're going to sneak through a sign-off of this site without any fight, then I know that they're wrong. I know that you'll be here. I know that as Greens will be here and will be beside you at all of the fight that you have in the future. If they think that putting up injunctions and accuse us of scaremongering, that we're going to scurry away, then they are wrong. Because 2018 is proving itself to be the year of the woman. It's been 100 years since some women got the vote. It's been a year where we've seen people start fighting for fundamental rights and fundamental changes for the rights of women. And we are sick of being told to sit down and let someone else handle it. After all, it's amazing women who are sending a clear message to the Quadrilla and to the government today, one that will ring out for all to hear. We will not be silent. We will not be pushed around, and we will never stand for fracking, not here and not anywhere.